Welcome to the module, The Reading and Writing Relationship, Incorporating Writing Opportunities in Reading Lessons. We value your time and appreciate your active participation during this module. Here are a few suggested learning norms to make the most of your time. If possible, work in an environment with as few distractions as possible so you can engage and reflect. Take notes and jot down ideas and questions as needed. And lastly, use this time wisely to ensure your professional learning with university instructors is productive. Here is the agenda for this module. We'll begin by discussing the importance of the reading to writing connection, and then we will learn about write to learn processes, parallel to reading, and discovery and invention, before we end with a reflection. By the end of this module, participants will be able to explain how reading and writing reinforce each other and support comprehension and critical thinking. Identify strategies that integrate reading and writing to enhance student learning. Identify writing activities such as journals, annotations, and quick writes that occur alongside reading to support understanding. And identify writing tasks that encourage exploration, idea generation, and creative thinking to deepen comprehension. Writing, as an essential means of communication, stands alongside reading as a pillar of literacy. However, there can be an emphasis on reading skills and instruction, like decoding, fluency, and comprehension, that sometimes leads to the neglect of writing in the classroom. While reading typically receives dedicated blocks of instruction, assessment, and intervention time, writing is sometimes left out of students' daily instructional time. Because research tells us that reading and writing are so closely linked, we know that when taught together, reading and writing mutually reinforce each other and therefore promote learning when they are integrated in classroom activities and lessons. Additionally, data has shown that students become better readers, writers, and thinkers when they learn reading and writing together. Writing serves as a tool for students to organize and clarify their thoughts about texts, and writing activities motivate students to read and reread by providing a purpose for reading and requiring students to become actively engaged with a text. This leads to enhanced comprehension and retention. On the other hand, without the benefit of reading, students cannot become effective writers. They have to see and experience how the written language works, so while reading gives students exposure to vocabulary, sentence structure, and techniques, writing activities give students practice in using them. All of this tells us that reading and writing work best when one process fuels and informs the other. Let's look at some strategies for integrating reading and writing in your lessons to support successful student outcomes. The strategies for connecting writing and reading we will discuss are called write to learn processes. Write to learn processes refer to instructional practices that use writing as a tool to deepen students' understanding of what they read or learn. These practices fall into two categories: those that parallel or are part of the student's reading processes, and those that are part of students' discovery or invention processes. Let's take a moment to define the two. The parallel to reading processes include exercises that are integrated with students' reading activities. These writing activities support the students' deeper comprehension of the text and may practice specific comprehension skills. The discovery and invention processes are exercises that foster creativity and exploration of topics and ideas. These help students internalize content they are learning and work best when involving highly engaging topics and low-stakes writing format and expectations. Instructors can create supportive learning environments that acknowledge the interconnectedness of reading and writing and equip students with essential literacy skills by intentionally creating opportunities to integrate reading instruction and activities with opportunities to write. Using writing to enhance our students' reading experiences is perhaps the most common write to learn exercise. Instructors who incorporate these exercises into their lessons do so because they understand that students sometimes read texts passively without thinking deeply about the purpose, themes, or big ideas. Right to learn exercises ensure that students work closely and carefully with texts. When using the right to learn processes that are parallel to reading processes, there are several strategies you can use to incorporate writing into your reading instruction. These strategies share the goal of integrating writing activities that directly support and enhance students' engagement with text, and we will discuss them further during this module. Annotations and marginal notes, double entry journals, summarizing and paraphrasing, response letters or emails. Annotations are notes, comments, or symbols that readers add directly to a text as they read to help them think more deeply and remember important ideas. When students annotate, they might underline or highlight key words, circle unfamiliar vocabulary, and write short notes in the margins to show their thoughts, questions, or reactions. Annotations help readers stay active and engaged with what they are reading rather than just moving through the words. Marginal notes are a specific type of annotation, short comments written in the margins of a text. These notes often capture quick thoughts, such as summarizing a paragraph in a few words, asking a question about something confusing, making a connection to something else they've read or learned, or noting the author's purpose or tone. Together, annotations and marginal notes help students monitor their comprehension, analyze ideas, and prepare for deeper discussion or writing about a text. This image is an example of an annotated poem. Notice how the student made notes to help with comprehension, asked questions, and circled or underlined important words. To implement annotations and marginal notes, provide students with a text and ask them to take notes or annotate in the margins as they read. You will likely need to plan a short mini lesson to model what this looks like and what your expectations are. For example, not highlighting everything on the page, only circling key words, etc. Teach students to highlight important ideas, jot down questions, make connections to prior knowledge, and react to the text in the margins. Consider accommodations that may need to be made for students who have a difficult time with the physical action of writing, such as allowing them to utilize speech-to-text tools to capture and record their annotations. Let's look at a classroom scenario. Ms. Rivera's 7th grade students are reading a short story. As they read, they highlight key events and jot questions or reactions in the margins. One student writes, "Why did the character make this choice? What would I do?" This sparks a class discussion where students share different perspectives and deepen their understanding of character motivations. Take a moment to reflect on this question. How could you use annotations or marginal notes to promote critical thinking in your own classroom? Feel free to stop the video to write down your reflection. Here are some possible responses you may have thought of. I could have students highlight parts of a text and write questions to encourage deeper discussion. Students could note connections to their own experiences or previous lessons. I might model thinking aloud in the margins first, then have students practice it independently. I could use annotations to track character development or cause and effect relationships in nonfiction. Double entry journals are an easy to implement strategy that students may find easier than annotations. Divide pages in students' notebooks or create a worksheet with 2 columns and label the columns text and response. In the image here, they have written from your mind, but either heading works just fine. As students read, they select passages, quotes, or information that stand out or relate to a designated theme and write that in the text column. In the response column, students write personal reactions, thoughts, questions, analyses, or reflections about what they wrote in the text column. Double entry journals are helpful to have students see the difference between stated evidence from the text and their own personal opinions or reactions. And this helps them see the connection between how something in the text can affect the reader and the reader's understanding of what the author is trying to say. Here is another scenario. Mr. Patel asks his high school English class to create a double entry journal while reading a poem. In the left column, they write lines that stand out to them. In the right column, they record their interpretations or questions. A student writes, "The line, 'I wandered lonely as a cloud,' makes me feel isolation, but also peace. Why does the poet feel both?" The journal becomes a foundation for small group discussions. Take a moment to pause the video and write down your answers to this reflection question. How might double entry journals help your students engage more deeply with text? Here are some possible ideas you may have had. They provide a structured way for students to interact with the text and record their thoughts. Students can compare their interpretations and questions during class discussions. The journals help me see students' thinking and misconceptions in real time. They encourage students to connect quotes directly to their own ideas or reflections. Summarizing and paraphrasing are higher level thinking tasks that are a part of students' reading and writing processes. Ask students to write summaries of sections or chapters of a reading assignment in their own words. Ensure students are working to capture the main ideas and key points without copying directly from the text. Keep in mind that being able to summarize text can be challenging for students, so you can provide support to the whole class, small groups, or just struggling students by thinking aloud as you identify the main ideas and supporting details. You can also allow students to verbally share their summaries with you or a partner before asking them to write it down. This will allow them to hear what their written summary should sound like and give you the opportunity to provide support as needed. Let's take a look at a science example. During a science lesson, students read a passage about photosynthesis. Each student writes a 2 to 3 sentence summary in their own words. One student writes, "Plants use sunlight to make food, which gives them energy to grow." The teacher collects the summaries to check comprehension and identifies areas where students need clarification. Take a moment to write down your thoughts and reflect on this question. In what ways could summarizing or paraphrasing help your students demonstrate understanding of key concepts? You may have written, "It allows students to show comprehension in their own words rather than just repeating facts." I can quickly assess understanding and identify areas where students need support. It encourages students to focus on main ideas and distinguish them from details. It helps students develop concise writing skills while processing information. Finally, after reading a story or an article, ask students to write a letter or an email from the perspective of a character or a historical figure. Students' letters or emails should address another character, the author, or a contemporary figure, discussing their reactions to the text and sharing insights gained. This activity is one that's often enjoyed by students, so if possible, allow students to share their letters with a partner or group. You will be amazed at what they write. And here is one final scenario. In a middle school literature class, students write emails to a character from the novel. One student writes, "Dear character, I was surprised by your decision to leave town. How did you feel afterward?" The class shares selected responses discussing how writing to the character helped them connect personally to the story and think critically about the plot. Take a moment to think about this question and write down your answers. How could response letters or emails support your students' comprehension and engagement with reading? You may have noted that students can personalize their responses and connect with characters or content. It encourages critical thinking as students justify questions or reactions to the text. It can serve as a formative assessment to see how students interpret themes or events. Or it allows for creative expression and makes reading more meaningful and interactive. One of the most difficult challenges for students when writing is deciding what to write. They are sometimes panicked by the thought of having to generate an original idea or write a response to something they've read. Providing low-stakes opportunities for students to discover their own thinking and to write responses to reading in a variety of settings increases their engagement and their confidence and their understanding across content areas. Let's watch a short video to see this in practice. As you watch, identify some benefits of incorporating low-stakes writing into your instruction.
So what I want you to do right now is in your notebook, write down at least one thing you know and one thing you don't, or one question you have. Because we do low stakes writing, I have seen my students become more critical thinkers. I've seen them become less afraid to make mistakes. They're pushing each other and themselves to think about things a little more deeply.
All right, ladies and gents, we're gonna start our writing. Begin.
In every class, pretty much every day, you will find kids writing.
We write in English, science. Actually, no, we write in every single class.
We do writing daily here in our math class. We use writing to put down our ideas and where we're at so far and where we can go from there.
So jot down what it is that you're looking for, because that can kind of be like the question that you're trying to answer, you know?
In numeracy, in history, in English, in art. You'll see them writing thoughts, writing opinions, giving people comments.
I had a student once say to me, "I never write because I'm always wrong." He'd gone through all of elementary school, and he was real used to a lot of red marks crossing out his misspelled words. For us, you don't have to have mastered spelling before you can think deeply about a novel or a play. We're gonna do a lot of low-stakes writing where, you know what? I don't care necessarily about the spelling. Here's an interesting issue, here's an interesting problem. Let's just think about that on paper for 2 minutes.
Describe or write about 2 things that you can do to improve your group's work today.
Structure is obviously so important to a piece of writing, but if you start with the structure, then you limit the ideas that you come up with.
Whatever statement you're focusing on, you can write any notes that you think will be helpful for later.
We're working on argument right now.
The 6 steps.
They did a little bit of research on 2 different topics. Should homework be banned? And do schools need to have a police presence?
We're gonna start our writing. We have 7 minutes. Begin.
We use 7-minute writes close to daily for a couple of reasons. It's an idea generator. Like if you only have 7 minutes, it's just about like getting out a bunch of ideas.
I said I think that schools should be provided with cops only if they have a taser, handcuffs, and a club.
It's definitely important to me that they're sharing it right away so that they can teach each other to be better writers.
I wrote that I agree that we shouldn't have homework because we have other things to do at home. For example, since I translate, I am busy and my body gets really stressed. The 7-minute write, which I really like because that gives me time to just like spill out all my thinking and like I don't have time to stop and rethink. Your writing is not always going to be perfect. You just have to pour out all your thoughts at first and then refix it later.
Don't forget to write down your observations. What do you see? What do you notice?
In 7th grade science class, we'd use interactive notebooks. With the interactive notebook, they are essentially writing their own middle school textbook. And low stakes writing is integral to that notebook. As we go through the year, we do an input and an output.
How many hydrogen, carbon, oxygen?
And the input is generally class notes, which are very, very, very structured at the beginning of the year. And the output is always reflecting on it or doing your own version of it or doing diagrams to explain it. So on one side, it's in academic language, and on the other side, it is in their own language.
It helps me start to put stuff in my own words and not have to get help all the time and then be independent.
We've been learning about molecules and atoms and mass and stuff. So it's like you understand it yourself, so now you can explain it in your own words.
For my revision, I said atoms make up everything that has mass in this world. Atoms does not make up energy.
Love it.
Atoms make up mass and build and use it to build.
The low-stakes writing is part of the instruction itself. It's writing to learn, not to show what you already learned.
You get a student-generated definition or a student-generated answer, which everyone in the class can then learn from.
Wait, what did you write there, Dickie? Chemical bonds are so skinny and they hold mass.
Low-stakes writing is a way of valuing student voice and student ideas, and it has carryover into all different areas. It will foster better discussions. It will foster more thought. It will foster engagement of everyone in the room.
Or parents might ask, why do we stay up so late? It's because of homework.
Take a moment to reflect on the video with the following questions. What are some benefits of incorporating low-stakes writing into your instruction? How can you incorporate low-stakes writing opportunities in your class throughout the school day, not just during writing time? Pause the video to reflect and write down your ideas for implementation in your classroom or small group. The discovery and invention process integrates writing as a tool for encouraging students to actively engage with the text, reflect on their understanding, and apply their knowledge creatively. These activities not only enhance students' comprehension of the material, but also develop their critical thinking and communication skills. As we just saw, this write-to-learn process can occur and is most enjoyable when the stakes are low for students. Free writing or reflective writing allows students to explore their personal responses to text, identify themes or motifs that resonate with them, and generate ideas for further analysis. Creative response writing encourages students to think critically about text, apply their understanding of characters and themes, and engage in imaginative thinking. Visual representations help students synthesize information, organize their thoughts spatially, and gain a deeper understanding of complex relationships within a text. Argumentative or persuasive writing develops critical thinking skills, encourages students to analyze and evaluate arguments, and strengthens their ability to articulate and defend their opinions based on textual evidence. Lastly, literary analysis writing tasks promote analytical thinking, encourage students to explore different perspectives and interpretations, and foster a deeper appreciation for literary techniques and themes. Now let's take a step further and look at some ways the strategies can be implemented in your classroom. Free and reflective writing can be introduced after students read a short story or a chapter from a novel. Ask students to engage in free writing for 5 to 10 minutes. Encourage students to write their thoughts, reactions, connections, or questions about the text without worrying about grammar or structure. Free and reflective writing prompts give students the opportunity to think deeply, make personal connections, and express their thoughts without worrying about structure or correctness. These prompts encourage creativity, critical thinking, and metacognition as students reflect on what they've learned or experienced. Teachers can use them to help students process what they've read, explore emotions, or develop opinions. For example, after reading a story about perseverance, a reflective writing prompt might be, describe a time when you faced a challenge and what you learned from it. What part of the story or text stood out to you the most and why? How did the main character change from the beginning to the end? What caused that change? Did anything in the text remind you of your own life or experiences? Explain the connection. If you could ask one of the characters a question, what would you ask and why? What lesson or message do you think the author wanted readers to take away? Do you agree with that? How would you have reacted if you were in the same situation as the main character? What emotions did you feel while reading this text? What parts made you feel that way? And if you could change one event in the story, what would it be and how might that affect the ending? Having students participate in creative writing responses after reading a text allows them to engage with the material in imaginative and meaningful ways. Instead of simply recalling facts, students can explore characters, settings, and themes through their own writing. They might rewrite a scene from a different character's perspective, create an alternate ending, or write a letter to a character giving some advice. These creative responses help deepen comprehension, build empathy, and encourage students to think critically about the author's choices while developing their own voice as writers. At first glance, visual representations may not seem like writing. However, you can ask students to create a visual representation, such as a concept map, timeline, flowchart, or storyboard, or other graphic organizer, based on the key events, characters, or ideas in the text. You can provide students with a Venn diagram and have them compare two ideas from the text by listing unique and shared features. This helps students see commonalities and differences amongst ideas within text. This same activity can be done using two separate texts that share a theme or central topic. Some additional visual representations can include story maps. These are diagrams that outline key story elements such as characters, setting, problem, solution, and events. Sequence charts. These are graphic organizers that help students show the order of events in a story or text. Give students a blank one to fill out after reading, or have students unscramble pictures and reorder them in sequence, writing a sentence to summarize each part. Cause and effect charts. Visuals that help students identify relationships between actions and outcomes. Character webs. These are diagrams showing a character's traits, motivations, relationships, and changes throughout a story. Main idea and details webs. These are organizers that help students identify the central idea and supporting evidence for that idea. Plot diagrams. These are visuals outlining the story structure, including the exposition, the rising action, climax, falling action, and finally, a resolution. You can see an example here on the slide. Theme charts. These are graphic tools for tracking how a theme develops over the course of a text. T-charts are simple visuals for organizing information such as facts and opinions, pros and cons, or character actions and reactions. And also, you can include a timeline or storyboard. These are visuals that help students retell events in chronological order, supporting sequencing and summarizing skills. Another right-to-learn process is persuasive writing. Here, instructors have students read a persuasive essay, editorial, or argumentative text relating to a theme or issue from their reading. Ask them to write their own argumentative piece, either supporting or refuting the author's position, using evidence from the text to support their arguments. Persuasive writing involves guiding students to clearly express their opinions and support those opinions with evidence. Teachers can start by modeling how to state a claim, provide reasons, and include examples or facts to convince the reader. Students can practice by writing about topics they care about, participating in debates, or analyzing persuasive texts to identify techniques like using strong word choice, emotional appeals, and logical, sound arguments. Emphasizing revision and peer feedback helps students strengthen their arguments and develop clarity, organization, and persuasive language skills. Literary analysis is another higher-order thinking task that it can greatly benefit students' comprehension of text and literary works. Literary analysis involves examining a text closely to understand how its elements, such as theme, character, setting, plot, and literary devices, work together to create meaning. Teaching students to analyze literature helps them move beyond simply summarizing a story and encourages them to interpret, evaluate, and make connections within the text. Students learn to support their idea with evidence from the text, consider the author's purpose, and explore how language and structure shape the reader's experience. This skill builds critical thinking and deepens appreciation for literature. Ask students to analyze a specific aspect of the text, such as character development, narrative structure, or symbolism. They can then write a comparison of the text to another work of literature, a film adaptation of the text, or a current event. Let's reflect once more. Which writing to learn strategies do you see having the greatest impact on student comprehension and engagement? To review, these writing to learn strategies include free or reflective writing, quick writes or exit slips, creative response writing, visual representations like graphic organizers or concept maps, argumentative or persuasive writing, and literary analysis. Second, what challenges might you encounter when integrating writing into reading lessons, and how could you address them? Take some time now to stop the video and reflect on these questions. Some possible challenges you might encounter when integrating writing into reading lessons may include time constraints. Writing activities can be time-consuming. Address this by using short, focused writing tasks or embedding quick writes throughout your lessons. You might experience student resistance or lack of confidence. Some students just dislike writing. You can address this by offering choice, by scaffolding their learning, or offering low-stakes activities to build their confidence. Sometimes you'll experience differentiation needs. You'll have students who are at different skill levels, and you can address this by providing sentence starters, graphic organizers, or allowing peer collaboration. Another challenge can be balancing writing and reading goals. Some teachers may struggle to integrate both reading and writing. You can address this by aligning writing tasks directly with reading objectives and comprehension targets. And lastly, another challenge you may experience is assessment and feedback load. Grading or giving feedback on writing can be overwhelming. Sometimes students can find that it's too much information and it becomes overwhelming. Address this by using self-assessment, peer review, or using a rubric-based checks for understanding. Students become better readers and writers when these processes are integrated in the classroom. Let's review what we've learned. As we explore the connection between reading and writing, it's important to remember that integrating these skills strengthens comprehension and promotes overall student learning. One way to approach this is by designing learning exercises that either run parallel to reading or encourage discovery and invention. Parallel to reading writing activities happen alongside the reading itself and help students process information in real time. Examples include annotations, marginal notes, double entry journals, summarizing, paraphrasing, and response letters or emails. These activities allow students to engage actively with the text as they read, reinforcing their comprehension and supporting critical thinking. On the other hand, discovery and invention writing activities encourage students to explore ideas more creatively and analytically, going beyond the text. This includes free or reflective writing, creative responses, visual representations, argumentative or persuasive writing, and literary analysis. These exercises foster exploration, generate new insights, and deepen students' understanding while also helping them develop their voice and reasoning skills. By thoughtfully incorporating both parallel and discovery and invention writing activities, we can create reading lessons that are engaging, rigorous, and supportive of all learners. Take a moment to reflect on the information we've covered today. Reflect on the strategies discussed in this session. Which ones do you envision implementing in your classroom? How will you measure or observe the effectiveness of the strategy once implemented? Take some time, stop the video if you would like, to write down your thoughts. Some possible responses to our first question may include, I plan to use annotations and double entry journals to help students track their thinking as they read. Or, I can see myself incorporating free or reflective writing at the end of lessons to deepen student comprehension. Or maybe you're thinking visual representations like graphic organizers seem like a great way to help students organize complex ideas. Some responses to our second question on how will you measure or observe the effectiveness of the strategy may include, I will look at student work samples to see evidence of comprehension and critical thinking. Or, I plan to use exit slips or quick writes to gauge understanding immediately after lessons. Or perhaps I'll compare student responses before and after implementing the strategy to track their growth. Or lastly, I'll ask students to reflect on how the strategy helped them understand the text or express ideas. We hope you enjoyed this module on the reading and writing relationship, incorporating writing opportunities in reading lessons. Please complete the Check for Understanding, CFU, and the survey included in the Google Classroom. Thank you, and we look forward to providing continued support for your professional growth at University Instructors.